Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it.
Technology, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovesi. We want to thank you for joining us today. We hope you're joining us every single Wednesdays. We go live on LinkedIn, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, again, every Wednesday. And if you can't catch us live, what you want to do is you want to go to masterconnector.show. We got a whole roster of amazing guests who are going to share their experiences, their skill sets, and their stories to help you level up. And so you can look at our calendar there. Pick out a guest that you need to hear from, mark your calendar, and don't forget to be here live, because live is where it's at, because live is where you get to ask questions, engage with other audience members, ask questions of our guest or me or Steve. Get your questions answered. Never leave a room without a question that goes unanswered, because it could be the thing that helps you take you to the next level. And also go to masterconnector.show if you'd like to be a guest on the show. We'd love to have you apply for that. We bring great people on here. And also, if you want to sponsor an episode, you can sponsor an episode of the show and get your name out there into the business community. And look, Steve and I, we go way back 28 years or so, been friends a long time, separate paths at times, but came back doing the show. Two former shy guys, two introverts who overcame that. Now, Steve speaks on stage as I do a little bit of speaking myself. We run this live. We're both authors. Like, you can overcome that introverted garbage that people tell you won't succeed. If you're not a type A personality, you can do it. Trust us. But look, we want you here because you're a connector. But there's only one master connector. So let's bring him on, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's going on, Robbie G? How you doing, sir?
Good, man. Good to see you.
Great seeing you. Yeah, it's funny because we do have a big roster, and then I was thinking we have a bunch of Rastafarians or something. I don't know. Anyway. Bad joke, horrible joke. Anyway, one of my dad jokes again. Anyway, what's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And I'm excited, very, very excited to be here with you guys today. Excited to have our amazing guest as well today with us. But I want to ask a question, and this one is a bit thought-provoking, so I may have to repeat it. So what happens when your purpose stops being just a personal idea and becomes a platform that connects people and builds community? Again, what happens when your purpose stops being just a personal idea and becomes a platform that connects people and builds community? And listen, one of the pillars of our show is, building, building, creating connections and helping build community. And so that's a big part of our pillars. And this is an important topic. And having a purpose, right? Having a vision of your life. And you guys have probably heard me say it. In the middle of COVID was not the greatest thing for a lot of things, but it actually was a blessing in disguise for some. I think one of the blessings that COVID did for a lot of people is it pushed technology forward. It promoted remote working, which is the good and bad of that. And we could talk about that. In fact, one of the things I love speaking about on stage is how we've lost in that work environment, that water cooler kind of culture where you could talk to people at the water cooler because everyone's remote hybrid. And so I like speaking on how we can kind of bring that human connection back. But regardless, we're in this world where COVID kind of changed things. And what it did for me is it gave me some time to reflect, time to think about, okay, why am I on this planet? And yes, early on in my my late teens, early adulthood, into some of my mid adulthood, if you will, I was driven. Rob knew me in my late 30s. And he knew I was a pretty driven guy. I mean, a couple black belts, right? And I had a advertising company out of college. So there was a lot of stuff that I had accomplished. And, I was driven by material things, by successes, by things that I could accomplish. But once I eventually, and again, COVID helped me with this. And I also heard some speakers on stage and she basically challenged the crowd to come up with a personal mission statement. And that allowed me to kind of refine what that purpose for me on this planet is. And the short version of it is, my vision is to make impact, because I believe, yes, success can be defined many ways, but the way I define it is how many people are better off because you were here, you were in their life. And so impact is a big part of it. So my vision is to be paid to travel the world, speak and inspire, and be a beacon of light, and really be that light to people. And now you always hear us at the tail end of the show to talking about be that light. So, but having a purpose, super important. And I believe when you share that purpose with people, you create better, meaningful connections. And ultimately, people kind of come behind you and they want to help your cause, and you start to build community. So we're going to touch on this. We're going to get into a lot of detail, a lot of stuff. Excited to dive in with you. But so if you're ready have my man, Mr. Robbie G, introduce our guest, type in the comments, let's go. And Robbie G, I'll pass to you, buddy.
All right, let's go. Jenn T. Grace is an award-winning author, nationally recognized speaker, and publishing strategist who has spent more than 2 decades helping individuals and organizations tell powerful stories. She's the founder of Publish Your Purpose, a certified B Corp hybrid publishing company dedicated to helping purpose-driven authors write, publish, and strategically market their books for long-term impact. Jenn has guided more than 200 first-time authors through the publishing journey and is the author of 8 books herself, including Publish Your Purpose and her memoir, House on Fire. Her work has been featured in Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, CNBC, and the Huffington Post. Please welcome to the show, Jenn T. Grace. What's up, Jenn?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thanks for coming.
Jen, we're not worthy.
So that's a great way to start. I appreciate that.
Yes, we bow to you. Absolutely. No, that's great. Now we appreciate it. What a blessing to have you here with us, for sure. And, a big part of, what you speak about and what your I guess work is on purpose, right? I know you've written some books on it. And so let's dive right into that, right? I talked about it at the opening of the show. So community, type in #purpose, right? Because the topic of our show, purpose drives community, connection and community. So we got to get into that first. So let's talk about it. So here's the question for you, Jenn. How does someone turn personal purpose into a platform that builds community?
That is not a small question, but
Yes.
I do love how you started off where you were talking about in COVID, how you had that person who prompted you to kind of come up with your, personal mission statement. And I love that you were talking about like being the light, because when we think about, there's that old adage of, God, I'm gonna butcher it, but basically, like if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
Right. So I feel like purpose is a direct tie to what that is, right? Because if we are showing up authentically as who we are, loving what we do, then it's going to emanate in what we do. And then what you were talking about being the light, like we can be the light for others. So I think, for a lot of people just don't know what their purpose is. So it's really kind of doing some soul searching, a little bit of digging deep to figure out what is my purpose. Because once we know what that is, it becomes a North Star, and building a platform and a community becomes easy because we start to attract all of the goodness and all of that values alignment that we're looking for. And it doesn't feel like you're pushing a boulder up a hill.
So do you have any, and I don't know, Robbie G looks like he's about to ask a question, but I'll throw this in and then let you Rob G, go. But do you have like a technique or any thoughts or suggestions, tangible ideas on how to come up with a purpose? You make a list, and then you cross off what's less impactful to yourself. Like any particular techniques?
Yeah, you know what? I always refer back to Simon Sinek's work of start with why. It really is fundamental when it comes to figuring out your purpose. Because if I can say my purpose is to help people, tell their stories. It's like, okay, but why does that matter to me? And then I might say, well, it matters because there's so many people who don't have the ability to be the one that tells their story. Why does that matter? And then we can just keep going deeper and deeper. And by the time we get to that 5th why, we're at some kind of core truth that can then be that starting point for our North Star. Because I think when we're doing purpose-driven work, or any work for that matter, there are times where it's hard. There are times when you're like, I don't want to be doing this, or I am not happy with what I'm doing in the moment. But if we can anchor back to what that North Star is, it's like, okay, you know what? This isn't about me. This is about who I'm serving and how I'm helping others. And so I think that really just kind of starting there is the best place.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo on this a little because, what you're saying, so a lot of people will dismiss this whole purpose thing. They just want to get in business, they want to make money, and I speak to mainly small business owners. But for me, I spent over 25 years in corporate. And when I left to start my own business, I started with what do I want this, what am I doing here? What am I doing? Because I actually, Steve mentioned before we really started here he was really driven. I was not. I wanted to be, but I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the motivation or the fuel or the energy because I never knew why I was doing what I was doing. But to your point, Jen, in your whole message, when I discovered what small business did for me and my family, my wife, my 4 kids, what it has meant in our lives, not just financially, but the flexibility of the time, I wrote a purpose statement when I started it. And I said, because I had experienced small business, my wife runs her own business, and I wanted to make a positive impact in people's personal lives through branding. I say that to myself all the time because I want people to have the life they enjoy. And some people will say, and done this, some people will say, oh, that adage you said, Jen, if you find what you love to do, you never work. Some people call that garbage. I say there's no way that's garbage because I'm living proof of it. Like, I hated my work for 25 years in corporate. I love every day and excited about doing what I'm doing here.
I think he's talking about me. I call it garbage sometimes. I say it's the biggest lie from the pit of hell. But hey, listen, let me say why I say that, because I loved advertising. I loved the idea of going to advertising, but there was a lot of pieces of it that I hated, like the collecting money from. So, I think what I agree. You gotta really enjoy what you're doing, and there's a part of it that you love, but there's going to be parts where you're going to really suck. And I've learned that the first 3 letters of the word success starts with suck. So you got to go through the suck to get through success, right? So anyway, I still agree, Rob. I like to be the contrarian sometimes, right? But I think that you can also find passion and purpose in other things outside of work, and then you could use the money you make through that to also fuel that passion too. So there's many ways to skin a cat, so to speak, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm the guy guilty of that. Sorry, Rob G. But anyway, I do, just before we get into the, further on here, I just want to welcome, we're talking about purpose and passion, Mr. Russ Hedge, just one of the sponsors of our show, an incredible friend, is on with us here. And then we've got the amazing Yolanda Chin on here. Welcome back. It's not a show without Yolanda on here. And then we have a new friend here. I had a great call with her. We know each other from the speaking world. Fran Trelise is on with us here, and she mentions about the water cooler. So I appreciate that, Fran. It was great talking to you earlier today. And we've got Kristen O. I reconnected with Kristen recently. Great to see you on here. And, of course, lots of love from Mr. Russ Hedge. So appreciate to keep the comments going. Remember, get in the comments, connect with each other, because this is the Master Connector Show. So let's keep this going if we can, Jen. So one of the things that our pillar of our show is being others focused. And to me, the root of that is serving people. And so I believe service is incredibly important. I know there's a lot of people in my world that they do service projects. They like doing that during the holiday season, right? So let's talk about service. Community, type in #service. And if you want to back up to purpose, you're welcome to. I don't want to feel like I'm cutting you from that, but just want to keep the ball rolling. So here's the question for you, Jen. Why did the strongest communities grow from service rather than self-promotion?
I don't know about you, but I find people who are self-promotional to be just a drain. Like they're emotionally draining. They're not adding any value. And in my new book that just came out in February called Promote Your Purpose, I actually have a whole chapter dedicated to sales as service. Because when we are showing up in service of others, again, we are going to attract the right people who want to work with us. And, I work with authors for a living. And so the authors that are shouting and screaming, go buy my book, and they're not adding any value, those are the authors that people are completely turned off by. It's just, so it kind of like common sense wise, it's like, I don't want to be part of your community if the first thing you're doing is shoving your book in my face and telling me to go buy it, versus you're leading with whatever your book topic is and really compelling me to lean in to say, ooh, what does Steve have to say, or what does Rob have to say?
Yeah, I have a couple things. One, my mentor says this, and he loves the Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur and all that, in one of the movies, I won't quote the particular, I'll tell you the movie, it's irrelevant, but he says, there's a quote in there, which is, in serving each other, we become free. And it's all about serving and being others focused. And I love that. And by the way, speaking of love, my amazing sister's in the house here with me, Eileen. So great having you on here, and Janelle. Again, also relatively new friend, from the speaking community. Janelle, I know, and I had a great conversation earlier today, yesterday, actually, I believe it was. So, Janelle, great seeing you as well. But
I'm going to jump in for a second, Steve, on this service thing. I think there's something else worth reinforcing. And when Jen, you said that about people shoving their book in their face, like, I never really thought about it, but yeah, that is pretty repelling. And I think, for myself, and I posted today, and I appreciate, Jen, you had reshared it on LinkedIn. I'm not a writer. I'm a designer by education. I'm a brand strategist by career choice. And I'm a business owner because I love what goes along with that. And so I get asked so often, why did I write the book? I wrote the book to get the message out. And if I'm promoting the book for me, I don't feel that's I don't feel that's serving. That's self-serving. But if I'm giving you the book, maybe I'm giving it for free. Maybe I'm giving you the first chapter. Maybe I'm giving you something out of the book and saying there's a message here that you can take. And honestly, if you apply it, you will level up. That's what we're talking about, right, Jen? Is that what we're talking about? It's using the book for the message, not to profit from it.
That's exactly it. Because now I'm thinking, oh, I need to get Rob's book because I want to feel that tangible takeaway that he's speaking so passionately about. Because you're not talking about yourself. You're talking about how what you've written is going to transform my life. And
by the way, I'm going to promote it, so he doesn't have to, but he has an incredible book. So you want to get that book. It's amazing. I read it, and it's one of those unique books that combines storytelling with a message and tangible ways to help all in one. Really, really good book. So anyway, Rob, just a plug for you on the book, but it is really, really good. Yeah. And right there, take a look at the picture.
Right. You have other people do your dirty work. You don't have to be the one spreading the book.
But I agree with you that it is, again, if it's whether it's promoting a book, whether it's promoting or just out there connecting, whatever it is, if you're others focused, if you're looking to benefit others, people see through the other stuff, right? I recently put a post out, I think as we were leading up to the show, ditch the pitch, stop pitching. Pitching doesn't help. I know with AI, and again, one of those things I like to talk about is, I believe in AI. I'm a strong believer in AI, but my AI it's authentic influence. Okay. That's what AI is, not what now obviously there's a place for AI and artificial intelligence.
You're pretty good.
You like that, huh? All right. The brand strategist likes it. I appreciate it. But yeah, AI, but you know what? You need the human aspect, and ultimately you need to be able to have you need to care. And yes, AI could get you out, get some messages out, but ultimately it comes down to, you caring about people and being others focused, like we talked about. So let's keep the ball rolling here. So by the way, I want to just see what Fran has to say. If you don't see a problem you're solving in someone's life with your product or service sales, you're irrelevant. Okay. Very, really good point. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about clarity. And I think that really kind of almost segues into the next phase of this. So being clear with, how you are relevant and how you can really benefit other people. Again, it's about other people. So here's the question, Jen. What happens when somebody finally gets clear on their purpose?
Everything becomes easier. It's not to say that you do not have difficult challenges and times, but things become easier, because if I can show up and know that my purpose is to impact authors who are impacting others, whether they're people reading the book or whether people are audiences, that they're speaking in front of, then it makes it easy for me to make decisions. So I can say, okay, Steve proposed this particular thing to me, this marketing strategy, or someone proposed this new business thing. I can say, is that is that aligned with my purpose? If the answer is yes, okay, maybe I'll explore it. Or if the answer is a very clear no, which a lot of times it is when we have that clarity, then I can say, you know what, this isn't going to be worth my time. And so it's a time saver. It's, we can go further faster with even less resources sometimes because we're just clear on what matters.
Jenn, it's like you read my book.
Amazing.
And look, I'm sure I got it from somebody else too, but I'm going again. I love what you just said. And just to summarize it for audience who didn't catch it because you were taking a bite of your sandwich, what Jenn said was purpose gives you clarity, clarity speeds up your process, and success favors speed. Is that about it? Is that the bottom line?
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah, that's great.
That is good stuff. Kudos to you, Rob G, on the
I read a lot of
wordsmithing
books.
That. Yeah,
Another endorsement for buying the book. See,
absolutely.
It just speaks for itself.
No doubt. Now one of the things I want to talk about is stories, right? Because we love stories on the show. It's a great way to relate to people, to connect with people, to help people with even if you are ultimately in sales, telling stories is a great way to do it. So I want to talk about stories. So community type in hashtag story. How could storytelling, Jenn, help people connect more deeply with their audience?
At the end of the day, people remember stories more than they're going to remember numbers or statistics or some, bullet pointed list of something that you can offer. And I think when it comes to storytelling, it also helps us allows the person we're speaking to see themselves in us, and we can see ourselves in them. So when we're thinking about from a sales standpoint, when I can say, share this really dramatic horror story that I had with a client, then it's going to save them from making the same mistake. So they're putting themselves in your shoes or the shoes of, the person that you're sharing, because you get it. You're not just like magically believing you kind of know what the pain point might be. You actually know what the pain point is because a story is going to hold them captive versus me rattling off, number of, X amount of authors, don't sell any books. Like that's not great. But if I share a story about that, then you're like, oh, I don't want to be that. And she knows how to make sure that I won't be that.
And I have a follow-up question to that because stories were something that I used early on because I didn't have any evidence of success. So I used to tell stories of my transformation. And then as I got clients, you can use theirs. But a lot of people don't use stories. Why don't people use more stories in what they're saying, in their messaging?
I think people are afraid, to be honest. I think that there's still, like social media in particular, still, I think it's a little bit less than it was, but there's still like this, you have to be perfect to put something out there. I worked with somebody probably 15 years ago, and it was a struggle to get her to put anything of meaning personally to her on her LinkedIn. And it's like, people, they know what you do like that. You don't need to convince them of that, but they need to know who you are. And so I think people are kind of like afraid to let the masses, if you will, or clients know things about you. And I wrote a memoir, and every time a client reads it, I still have that like pit in my stomach where I'm like, oh God, they know everything, but they know everything and they're still here. So there means there's some kind of alignment with what I wrote and how they feel.
Yeah. And I'm going to add on to that, not saying, opposing that, but onto that, because I agree. But I think the other piece of it is lack of training or lack of, training is probably the best way to put it. In sales, and I've had 20 plus years of pretty hardcore sales, it was always product. And then at one point I've had shifts of, let's talk about impact selling, which is way better. And impact selling is great, but it's even more effective when you have stories to back up the impact. And I do think, there might be some people that there's a fear of storytelling, especially if it's about themselves, but less a fear if you're telling stories about people you've helped, right? Because there's not much vulnerability there. But I think it's just a matter of awareness or training. And I think once people get trained and understand how and why and when to tell the stories and, how, and maybe, be smart enough to remember some of the stories and keep track of those stories so they can actually share them at appropriate times. I think it's super crucial for me as well. Yeah. But I want to just welcome on Jackie. Jackie, I know Jackie for quite a while, but I believe she was a guest on our show once. So Jackie, great seeing you here as well, and she's popping on with us, which is amazing. All right, so let's keep the ball rolling here. Let's talk about alignment, okay? And to me, when your purpose, your vision, your purpose aligns with your messaging, as Rob said, that's when things start to go, they start to hum for you. So let's talk about alignment. So here's the question for you, Jenn. How do you know when an opportunity aligns with your purpose or distracts from it?
I think there's two approaches here. I think you have the intuition aspect of it. You can just feel it, whether it feels like it is aligned or it doesn't align, or you have some kind of metric or some kind of system that you follow that you can kind of run through when you have an opportunity that comes through to ask yourself a series of questions, or even just ask yourself, as I was kind of saying before, like, does this align or does this not align? I think that when we're thinking about that alignment, like for me, like we have a team of 9 people. That is limited resources in the grand scheme of business. And therefore, we have to be really selective with who we choose to work with. Therefore, they have to align with our values. Otherwise, it's going to be more time, more money, more headaches, all of the other things if we start to kind of like reduce, what our purpose is and why we're showing up. So, I think that intuition a lot of times is the easiest way, but not everyone's honed into it.
That's great. Love it. Well, this is amazing, and we're starting to get toward the tail end of the show. And of course, we feel this all the time. Like we wish we could just, go another half hour, but we know that also people are busy. And to Rob G's point, a lot of people are taking their lunch, watching the show, which we appreciate, and we have respect for. Right? It's not like when we were in COVID, where people were on these kinds of calls for an hour and a half because they had nothing else to do. But anyway, let's talk about, I know you have an offer for the community. Could you give us a little bit of what you're offering? And we appreciate you doing that for the community.
Yeah, I have chapter 1 from my new book, Promote Your Purpose. And it is what it says. It's promote your purpose. And the first chapter is clarify your purpose, your vision, and your impact. And so I thought appropriate to our conversation, that might be at least just a good starting point for folks to kind of really start to dig in and figure out, what their purpose might look like.
Love that. That's awesome. And what is the best way for our community to reach you, Jenn?
I am active on LinkedIn. That is really the only social media. So LinkedIn, please, by all means. Also on Substack, and then our website, which is publishyourpurpose.com.
Love that. Love that. Any closing thoughts or comments you'd like to say before we kind of close up the show?
I would say, if you're sitting here and you don't really know what your purpose is yet, like now, there's no better time than right now to start to kind of unearth what that might look like.
I love that. That's awesome. Do it now. One of my favorite books is the Magic of Thinking Big, and it talks about the power of now. Do it right now. So appreciate you, Jenn. You're awesome. We're going to have you go in the green room as we close things up here. So appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Excellent. Well, fantastic. Good stuff, community. All right. So listen, if you loved Jenn and you loved, today's show, you're going to love next week as well. March 18th, a week from today, same bad time, same bad channel. So it's Being Understood beats Being the Best with Silvana Pimentel. It's going to be a great show. You don't want to miss it. And if you want to learn more about some of our up and coming shows, go to masterconnector.show. If you're interested in either sponsoring or being a guest on the show, that's the same place to go. And to Rob's point, we have some incredible guests like Jenn. So we're pretty stringent in terms of who we have on the show, and we are booked out all the way into October. It's crazy, but it's amazing, and we're just so blessed that we have such incredible people that want to be on our show with us here. And listen, I mentioned it before. I'm gonna say it again. Don't miss. Get Rob G's book. For sure. And it's definitely a incredible book. So let's do that and support him as he has his book. Don't Fear the Brand. So appreciate that. I'm going to close with a quick story here. So after immigrating to the U.S. from South Africa with very little money and unfamiliar an unfamiliar accent. Yes, Elon Musk, okay, like him or not, he struggled through early business failures and nearly bankrupt, bankruptcy while being his first, building his first company. And instead of retreating, he doubled down on bold ideas and co-founding PayPal and later launching ventures like, as we know, Tesla, SpaceX, and shaped an entire industry. Musk's journey reminds us that when you dare to pursue a vision, others think it's impossible. You don't just build companies, you become a beacon of light that can inspire others to think bigger and to change the world. Folks, let's be an inspiration to others and always remember to shine our light. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.